Hey, 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 it's Rebecca, and you are listening to Resilient by Design. Today on the podcast, I am going to talk about, honestly, that's the one word that I feel is so Canadian when I talk. Okay, sorry, I digress. Back on track. It's a hot topic. It's a very, very hot topic because designers ask it all the time, and it's about pricing your services. Honestly, in my designer meetup group, which is my free Facebook group for designers, but also within my designers room community, which is our membership, it's a hot topic. It is a conversation that is brought up almost weekly, questioning, did I price my service correctly? How should I price my service? Is this enough money? How do you do it? All the things. And a lot of it also comes back to understanding our mindset around money. So today I just really want to talk about my thoughts on pricing your services from my experiences. And I can only share based on my journey, all the talk about money. And then, I'm really curious to hear from you guys. So if you listen to this episode, hop on over to the Designer Meetup Facebook group. Let's start a conversation. Maybe we should do a Zoom or a live, just to dig into this further. I think there's so much power in sharing what you charge, because it gives others the confidence to charge for their services too. All right, guys, I hope you enjoy this episode.
All right. I'm Rebecca Hay, and I've built a successful interior design business by trial and error, podcasts, online courses, and so many freaking books. Over the last decade, I've grown from an insecure student to having false starts to careers, and now I'm finally in the place where I want to be. Throughout my journey, it's been pretty obvious that I'm passionate about business and helping other entrepreneurs do the same. Each week, I'll share tangible takeaways from my own experience and the experiences of other badass women to help you build your confidence and change your business.
Let's start this podcast off by just sharing a little bit about my journey. So when I started out in the interior design industry, I worked for another designer. I was his assistant. I did a little bit of everything, which was incredible experience for me. I worked on contract, and I picked up fabrics. I helped select fabrics. I helped put design schemes together. I put together pricing. I created client invoices. I recorded our hours that were tracked. I called and coordinated contractors and trades. I contacted clients to connect for meetings. You name it, anything that happens in the interior design world, I did it. I sourced materials. I picked up I keep saying fabric. I don't know. Fabric's clearly top of mind. But I would go pick up tile. I would fill my car. I would truck things over to site. I'd pick up a light when it was ready. I'd take it to the installer. I would meet the electrician. I would do the AutoCAD drawings. I would do the elevations. I would do any presentation packages. I did a little bit of everything. And as a result, I got a lot of experience. Now, at that time, I was not making very much money. I think, I probably made, I don't remember now, but I think it may have been like $20 or $22 an hour, which at the time I thought was pretty darn good. And then I've got a couple raises over the years. And then when I went out to start my own design firm, I had no idea what to charge. The designer I had worked for charged hourly, and a lot of people in the industry do. And so that was kind of like the natural thing for me to do. I decided I was going to charge, what did I say? The numbers are they're like a little bit blurry in my mind, but I feel like I started off at $95. I feel like $95 an hour felt okay to me because the designer I worked for, I think, was charging $225 at the time. And I thought, that's reasonable. And then very quickly, I jumped up to $125. I think I was at $125 for a long time before moving to $175. And I think I was at $175 until I really changed my pricing structure to be fixed fee. What I can say about the hourly billing model for me, I hate tracking my hours. I didn't. I still don't. I'm not going to lie. I don't track my freaking hours. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. The good news is I have people who work for me who track their hours and help me track mine. So I don't advise you do what I did. I never really knew if I was making money. That's the thing. I only knew like, oh, well, if so-and-so charges $175, then I'm at $125. That seems about right based on what I think their experience is and the level of service they offer. Sure. Okay. But how many hours was the other person that I was referencing charging for a certain service? I didn't know. Like, it's not enough just to know someone's hourly rate. To me, that means absolutely freaking nothing. You could meet a lawyer and they're like, I'm $325 an hour. You can meet another lawyer and they say, I'm $150 an hour. What the frick does that mean? How many hours is it going to take you to help me solve my problem? And if the lawyers are going to take the same number of hours, well then, okay, clearly one is more expensive than the other. But it could be that the person of the lesser dollar value needs 20 hours, where the more expensive person only needs 10. So they're the equal price. Like it's so bananas to me that in this industry still we are comparing ourselves based on $1 per hour because we know, I know, and you know that you are probably not charging for every single hour you work. You just aren't. And if you are, well, shoot, good for you. You are one of the minority. I was never charging for every hour. It would be like a few weeks would pass and I'd be like, shoot, I got to invoice. I got to get some money in. So then I would go back on look back on my Google Calendar, or actually I used a planner. I used a day timer back then. And I would go through, I'd be like, okay, so what have I been doing in the last few weeks? Legit. And I'd be like, okay, project Silver Birch, let's say. Oh yeah, Monday was on site. I think I was probably there for like 2 hours. I never counted travel time. Oh yeah, then later that afternoon, I think I went and picked some fabric. So like, I don't know, an hour and a half. Okay, so that's about 3.5 hours that day. And I would do that for every day. I go through, no, I didn't really touch that project. And of course, looking back, I mean, guys, my memory sucks normally. So looking back, I would always underestimate the time I put in because I wasn't tracking it. And then even then, I'd say, okay, so 3.5 hours the Monday, didn't do anything for them Tuesday. Oh, Wednesday went to Kravit. I picked up those memo samples. I don't feel like I can charge for that. Like, it's not really designing. I was just picking something up. But then I came back to the office and I did put together a design scheme. So I'll say 45 minutes, right? So I'd do it that way and I'd add up all the time. And then I'd look at the time and I would say on the invoice, be like, oh my God, $3,500. Shit. That's insane. I feel like I have not done that much work. There's no way I can justify charging $3,500. So then I'd go back and I would negotiate with myself and I would say, well, I don't really think, like, I already kind of designed the scheme. Like, I was the one kind of being funny about it and I wasn't happy with that shade of blue. So I don't think I won't charge them for that. I'll just take an hour off here. And if I take 2 hours off there, okay, now we're getting down to like $3,100. Maybe that's right. I'd like to be under $3,000. You know what? I'm just going to charge them $2,750 for the last few weeks. So what does that work out to? Okay. So I'd send the invoice and guess what? The client would say, oh, this seems high. But of course I couldn't say to them, oh, well, you should have seen it before I discounted my hours. So then I had to decide, do I negotiate? Do I stand strong? Do I credit? What do I do? Has anybody been in that situation? I was in it multiple times because I hate conflict and because I don't appreciate numbers the way other people do. And I didn't at the time value the service I was offering. So charging $1 per hour really meant freaking nothing. You could charge $500 an hour and only charge, 4 hours of your time, and you're still making the same amount of money on a project as somebody who's working a few more hours and charging less money. I just never really I never liked it. And then when I heard this idea of doing a fixed fee, I was like, this is interesting. But the reason I switched to fixed fee was not because I wanted to charge a flat fee. Yes, it was exciting to think that I wouldn't have to track my hours, although it turns out you actually do. And it was kind of exciting to think that maybe I don't need to negotiate anymore. Like if it's a fixed fee, it's one time I'm invoicing them. I'm not sweating those emails where I'm like, manually typing and retyping the sentences that I'm sending to the client. Is that wording strong enough? I don't want it to be too strong. Oh, wait, maybe I'll send it to a couple design friends and see what they say about my response to their inquiry on my invoice. How much headache could I have saved by not doing all those freaking emails back and forth, trying to justify my hours and my time and trying to describe how I had applied a discount or where I'd saved the money? Like, OMG. So it was sexy and appealing to do flat fee. But the only thing that gave me confidence to switch to a flat fee was actually talking to other designers who told me exactly what they were charging. Without that, I would have greatly, vastly undercharged for flat fees that I would have lost money. And it wasn't until I heard other designers who were saying, oh, well, I'm charging $20,000 to design a space of that size. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I only charged like $4,000 for the same amount of work. And I feel like I'm just as good and as experienced as them. What's going on? So by hearing others in the industry, and this is, I can't even say it enough. This is where I feel so passionate and I feel so strongly about collaborating, not competing with each other. And by collaboration, I don't mean necessarily, hey, let's team up and design that house together. That's not what I mean. I really think to me, it means collaborating our business minds, sharing our experiences, sharing how we're doing things without the fear that that other person is our competition and that they're going to steal our ideas. Or we work so hard coming up with this system of invoicing, and I've just told my friend and now she's copying me and she didn't spend the hours. So what? It's all karma. It will come back at you. What you put out, you will get back. If you are a generous soul and a generous spirit and you share how you're doing things, chances are other people will then in turn share with you. And that's what I've started to see happen. So hearing that other people were charging fixed fee, I was like, oh, how do you calculate it? This is super interesting. I tried a couple different ways. So the first way that I tried calculating, and I know there's lots of designers, they do it lots of different ways. All I'm sharing with you today is how I did it. And I'm not saying that my way is for you, but I think it's helpful and valuable to hear how other people charge. And I know I've talked about this on the podcast before. I definitely talk about this in my courses, but it never hurts to have a refresher. So when I first decided, okay, I want to change how I invoice and how I charge for my fees, a girlfriend and I decided we were both going to do this. We had a business coach at the time, and she had suggested you do a % of total budget. So she had said, you meet a client and you understand the scope of work, and then you could say, well, this project is probably about $100,000. And you would charge 20% of that budget, and that would be your flat fee from start to finish. I'm like, oh, I like the sounds of that. And then there would be a payment structure, kind of like contractors, right? So you do a deposit, then a certain amount of money would be due at a certain interval, and then the remainder would be due towards the end. For your fee, just for your fee. I'm not talking about goods. That's completely separate. I'm just today talking about design fees for your time and your service. And so I thought, well, that's really great. Wow, imagine a project is $100,000, which is not that hard to imagine because that's pretty typical, at least in Toronto. I mean, you want to renovate your main floor of your house, $100,000 is probably not enough. Not to mention having a designer, right? So I thought, okay, so if it was a main floor reno, nothing over the top, maybe not even including furniture, I'm not sure, I would get paid $20,000? What? Is this even allowed? That feels wrong. That feels like so much money. And I'm like, how did I do a renovation of somebody's main floor from start to finish, including decor, and I only collected $7,000 in fees? And I didn't do it alone. I had a design assistant I had to pay out of that. And I had an office manager I had to pay out of that. And someone else is charging $20,000 and they're charging it in a flat fee so they don't have to argue? Because that same main floor renovation that I charged, this is a true story. I'm not making this part up. This is real. I don't make anything up. Just sometimes I don't know the numbers exactly, so I have to fudge them. But this was like in and around $7,000. I remember after I calculated the whole thing. I even held back because the client was so tapped out financially and I was already over what I told them I thought it was going to be because I used to guess my hours. So I would say, well, on the low end, it'll be 20 hours and on the high end, it'll be 40 hours. I made up the hours. I had no backup. I hadn't tracked my hours to know. I literally took a guess. I was like, well, it'll probably take this many hours to source tile, probably take this many hours to do CAD. Oh my God, was I ever wrong? I was never between the low and the high. I was always over the high. And then what would happen is we'd be invoicing and they'd say, well, this is more than you said it was going to be. You know what? Don't bother coming for the tile install. You know, my husband will be there and he can oversee it. Right? No designer wants to hear that. So I wouldn't go because I was respectful and I was so worried about money. Now, in hindsight, they were not my ideal client, right? Because they didn't value the service I offered enough. But I also don't think I valued the service I offered enough. And that's where we get into the mindset piece, but we'll get there. So anyhow, long story short, I'm like, $20,000, that sounds amazing. But then when I actually wanted to go and implement and charge someone this, I struggled because I didn't know my numbers. And so we kept asking. My friend and I were like, well, how does this, we don't know the budget yet. We don't know what it's going to cost to renovate. What if it's actually double that and then we're only making 20,000 and we should be making more? Or what if it's not even that much? And the client's going to question us, how do you know what it's going to cost? And they're going to hold us to that. And that to me was so stressful. And keep in mind, at this point in my design business, I'd probably been running my business for 3 or 4 years. So I was pretty much a baby. Even though I'd worked for another designer, his model was totally different. So I had no reference. And so for me, I thought, I don't know accurately what things are going to cost. And it made me nervous. And so I actually don't think I did. No, did I? I don't think I ever did a job at that, following that model. I think I almost did. And then I discovered another model. So I switched gears. Grass is always greener. And then I found the business of design model, which was 3 phases, doing a 3-phased approach. I'm like, this makes more sense. It's like bite-sized pieces, and I can charge a fixed fee based on 3 phases. And now over the years, we've reduced the number of steps that we follow and how we do it. But essentially, we charge a fixed fee for 3 separate phases, as opposed to 1 fee for the whole 9 yards, which to me felt like a big commitment, very scary, and an opportunity to probably lose money, realistically. So now we charge, the first phase is a paid consultation. We charge 750 Canadian dollars plus tax. And after that, we put a proposal together for phase 2. Phase 2 is for us to do the design. The whole thing, whatever the scope of work entails. So it could be little, it could be big. Hopefully it's mostly big. And we put together a flat fee proposal for that design phase. That gives them a full, complete design and drawing package that they could go and implement on their own if they like. However, we prefer to work with people to the end, and that's when they would hire us for phase 3. So phase 2, we charge based on square footage. Based on square footage, not of the whole home, but of the areas that we are going to be touching or working with or designing as per the scope of work. And there is a range. It really ranges from $18 to $25 a square foot. And the reason there's a range is because scope of work, as you know, can vary so greatly. So greatly. And so what I found is that, hold on, am I still recording? I don't know. Yeah, okay, I'm still recording. Phew, my computer went quiet on me, got nervous. It might be just a little bit of a decor refresh, or maybe it's a total remodel. We do price new builds slightly differently, and now we've sort of transitioned to doing decorating separately as well. But in general, that's what we do. And so it could be $20 a square foot if it's renovation and some decor, and it really just depends on the project. Keep in mind, if it's a smaller square footage, we will charge a higher dollar per square foot. like a higher number, because it's just as much work, and a small space doesn't mean it should be cheaper, right? And that's for phase 2. And then phase 3, which is let's get rolling and place the orders and hire the trades. That's where we do an administrative fee for our time, which is a percent of the total budget. So that can vary between 18 and 20%. And that covers our time, but we do not charge hourly. What I like about this model, and you can price things however you like, but and this is really, Kimberly Selden is the one who really taught me the value of like, only charge a flat fee for area that you know you can control. If you can't control the parameters, like when you're on a job site running, like don't charge a flat fee. Do you know what I mean? Like you have to be able to control the hours that your time puts in. Otherwise, you're going to lose money. Or you have to charge a lot of money for your flat fee so you know that you're covered. And what I like about it, and I know some designers who do something similar, they'll do different phases, and they might do flat fee for design and then hourly for implementation. In fact, I think that's a very popular model. I do like that, hourly for implementation, because what that means is you're just getting paid if you go to job site, and that way people can't take advantage of your time. You know how you have those clients or those contractors who want you to be there like every other day. So that will start to eat into your bottom line. And I've had that happen on projects where I've thought, I'm not going to make money on phase 3 because the contractor has just made so many mistakes. We've had to fix so many things and go back and rework and redo that I do enjoy the idea of the hourly in phase 3. However, as I said before, I hate charging hourly because I hate tracking hours and defending hours and. Okay, so that's how I price. So I challenge you to consider how you price out your services. Now, at the time of this recording, that's what I charge. We are continually evolving, continually updating and upgrading and improving our processes and our fee structure. And I think we are going to raise our prices for 2022. We're trying to move our business in a slightly different direction. And so we want to charge more money so that we can offer a higher value. But that's how I charge. So I encourage you to look at what you're doing and see if there are ways that you can tweak and probably charge more money. Most of us, I'm not going to get into how most of us undercharge. Well, I will a little bit. So I want to talk about this mindset idea. The idea that, and I gotta put my microphone down. This is like serious, guys. This is like Rebecca's heart to heart today. I have been so fortunate in the last year and a half to have access to so many designers through my courses, through this podcast, through Instagram, and through my Facebook group. And even the in-person meetups that I had before the pandemic. And what has been so wonderful is to get the opportunity to share with those designers how I work, and in turn, they share how they work, and we're all helping each other. So many, and I know this because I am in community with hundreds of design professionals who are either stagers or decorators or interior designers or contractors or graphic designers that are completely undervaluing the service they offer. And it's not their fault. It's not your fault if you're not charging enough money. It is not your fault that you're not making enough money. It is the way, in my opinion, IMO, the way that the nature of our job and the nature of our industry is that we live and we work in such silos because so many of us are solopreneurs working on our own, maybe with one assistant, maybe with a couple people, but we don't all have access to a community to share information. School does not, if anyone goes to school for design, it's not teaching us about pricing. It's not teaching us about creating community. I mean, maybe they are now. I would be surprised. Doesn't sound like it from the design students I meet. And so how the heck are we supposed to know what to charge for our design service? Like, how's anyone supposed to know? You're literally guessing and you're Googling and looking things up online. There is no community set up to share. And you don't all have to do it the same way. And that's actually what, I feel very strongly that there is not one way to do it. Yes, our industry can be confusing because there's so many different ways that people offer their services, but I don't think that's a problem. I think that's great. I think the problem is that we're not all sharing. Because if Jody shares with Catherine, who shares with Sarah, and they all charge a different rate, and then they say, well, the last time I did a kitchen reno, I charged $3,500. And then let's say the other person says, oh, well, when I did a kitchen reno, I charged $15,000. Well, shoot, the person who only charged, what was the number I said? I don't remember. Let's how bad my memory is. She's going to say, well, maybe I'm not going to charge $15,000, but hey, maybe I can charge I don't know, $8,000. This is just an example to show the importance of sharing. Okay. The other reason that a lot of us undervalue our service, and I'm not an expert on this, I am in fact trying to improve my own mindset, is money mindset. And this is something that I'm just starting to deep dive into. I read a really great book a few months back called You Are a Badass at Making Money. I know the title sounds like really, I don't know the word. It's not something that you'd pick up and feel like it sounds a little cheesy, but You Are a Badass at Making Money. I think the author is Jen Sincero. I could be wrong. I hope that's right. And it was really great. I actually did the audio, but I think the book is better because you can circle things, highlight them, write things down. And I commit things to memory when I see them in paper, probably because that's what we were taught in school. But the interesting thing is, what she talks about is your money mindset, and that we have to, so many of us women especially, don't necessarily think that we deserve the money that is out there for us to have. And it's about rejigging how we see our worth and our relationship to money so that more money comes our way. And now I know this is starting to sound a little woo-woo, but I think it's really powerful. And the book walks through mantras that you can write out, power statements, that type of thing, journal entries. I really like that each chapter has a suggested answer these questions in a journal. And I actually did, I'm going to see if I can pull it up here. Hold on. Because it's easy to say, charge more money, right? But when your brain is telling you, well, that, I don't see the value in that, that's so much money. You need to sort of retrain your brain to be accepting of the money that's coming your way. And I mean, running your business is not just about money, but today's podcast is. So that's why I'm talking about it. Oh, shoot. Oh, yeah, here it is. Okay, this is from one of her chapters. And I have this in my notebook. And there was 2 money mantras that I wrote down. One is, I love money and money loves me. When you have a negative relationship with money, it's going to be hard to bring and attract that into your life. I do really believe in the power of attraction, karma, whatever you want to call it. Whatever you put out into life, I believe you get back. And so by saying, oh, I hate money, money is bad, you're not going to get the money in your life. You're basically telling money, if money were a person, F off, I don't want to hang out. Guys, I'm not the foremost expert on this. I'm just sharing what I do. So I love money and money loves me. It's reframing. It's like how I try to not say that I'm bad at math. I'm trying really hard. It's hard for me. But I'm trying to have a more positive relationship with money and math and finances by saying I'm learning or just not talk negatively about it, because it starts to implant in your subconscious that you're bad at it. And it's like the self-fulfilling prophecy. The second money mantra I have written in my book is, I love money and I'm grateful every day that it's surrounding me with its glorious goodness. And I believe that the idea behind this is that money isn't bad. It brings good things into our life because of money. And then there's, she talks about thinking about what are the good things in life that money can bring, right? So money can give me time with my family. I can afford to go on a vacation. I can afford to buy the second property. I can afford to go for dinner, whatever the things are that you value in your life, and reframing money as a positive, good thing. And then we have one other little prompt here. And this is something that you guys could do on your own after this, or grab a pen. But she has this sort of, starts off this sentence and then you have to finish it. The sentence says, I am grateful to money because ... So I'm going to share what I wrote. Oh my God, I can't believe I do this. Like, anyone in the world could hear this. Okay. I wrote, I'm grateful to money because it allows me to travel. It allows me to live in a beautiful house, do the work I love, take care of my family, buy a Tim Hortons coffee when I feel like it, employ others who are able to buy their own homes and start their own families. Money has allowed me to even start a new business. That's just sort of the beginning of what I wrote. The Tim Hortons coffee part, just so you guys know, is like when I really thought about it and I tried to get like really specific. Like this was a bit more general. I feel like that was probably not a good example. That was my first sort of brainstorming, but was when I was in design school in Vancouver, I was working at Earl's Restaurant, as you know, if you've listened to this podcast for a while. And like, I did not make a lot of money. I mean, $9 an hour plus tips. And I had to pay for my rent. My school, fortunately, my parents had helped me with school, but all my living expenses was all on me. And even then it was hard. Money was very tight. And I remember the days that I would go to school and I'd be like, oh, I just want to go to Tim's and get a tea and a Timbit. That's my thing. If you're American and you don't know what Tim Hortons is, Google it. Tim Hortons tea with milk, medium steep tea with 2 milk and a chocolate Timbit, usually 2 chocolate Timbits. And to me, that was a luxury. Just so you know, the tea was probably $2. And then the Timbit was, I don't know, 25 cents. But to me, that was something that felt kind of excessive. Like I could just make a tea at school, right? Or I could just make a tea at home. And like, who needs the Timbit? Let's be honest. So the days that I would treat myself, or maybe I get a breakfast sandwich, those days that I would treat myself, and it was probably like $5 or less, I felt like, ooh, it was like a guilty pleasure. So when I wrote down, I'm grateful to money because I no longer have to think twice if I want to buy a tea. Sure, I can save money and be frugal and smart and not go and get Starbucks like lattes every day. But it's thinking about what are the little things that having money does allow you to do and allow you to enjoy. And that is just the tip of the iceberg, really. I think you guys should get that book. If this is something that you struggle with or something that you want to work on, I think it's not something that you can solve overnight. And the reason I'm talking about this, you're probably like, what the heck, Rebecca? Like, just tell us how to price our services. This is all woo-woo and ridiculous. The reason is because I think you have to look at why you're not making enough money. Why are you not charging enough for your services? Why don't you think there's value in what you're offering? And the two takeaways from, if you can only take away 2 things other than the fact that I love Tim Hortons teas and Timbits from this podcast, one would be that you need to focus on your money mindset. What is it that's holding you back? What is your relationship with money? For me, I grew up in a bit of a boom-bust household. My mom was an entrepreneur, and there were times where we were flying high and she bought the $1 million house. And then a year later, had to sell the house and had no money to go shopping. It was up and down and up and down. So I have my own sort of deeply rooted issues with money that I'm trying to unpack. So that's the first thing, is like to consider, like, look at your upbringing, look at your mindset. Maybe if this topic interests you, there's people like Andrea Freeman. She does a really great job talking about this on her podcast. There's You Are Badass at Making Money. There's probably a ton of other books that I still have to read. So that's the first thing I would ask you to consider looking into. And then the second thing I would say is collaboration, not competition. And what I mean is what I said before, find a community that will be open and share. What are others in your city doing? Get together, go for coffee, join a Facebook group, attend a live seminar, like actively pursue that to see. And what I'll tell you is you will find people that will encourage you to charge more money. And I have seen that especially inside my designer's room, the membership that I launched earlier this year for alumni of my courses. And it's been an incredible community to see how every single one in that group is charging more money for their services. And the only reason is because they're seeing that others are doing it too. Okay, that's it. I hope you guys got something out of that podcast. My God, my computer went dark again. I was talking for a lot longer than I thought I would. I feel very passionate about this, and it's something that I'm still struggling with. I'm still trying to improve. Like with our design services, I still battle with like, oh, is that too much money? Am I charging enough? Is that not enough? And it's only when I start talking to my colleagues and my peers and they start saying, well, like I charged, I don't know, $30,000 to design that house. And I'm thinking, oh, shoot, maybe I didn't charge enough money, right? Like it's a good reality check. Anyhow, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Join our Designer Meetup Facebook group. Say hello there. Let me know that you listened to this episode of the podcast. I'll see you soon.